Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Jafunk, music producer from Australia based in Berlin. And today I'm going to show you how to make a funky beat using my new sample pack, Future Funk and Soul, Volume 3, that's out now on Splice. Okay, so we're going to start with the drums here, and when I'm making my own music I tend to always start with the drums because it gives you the tempo, it gives you a feel for where the groove is going to go and the overall vibe of the song. So I'm going to show you the kick drum. We've actually got a punchy electronic kick here. It's from a drum loop in the pack. I've chopped it up, called the Sizzler Bottoms. And I've actually laid another one on top here, another electronic one. It just adds a bit of character to the track and a little bit more top end, I guess. And next we're going to move on to the snare. So I've layered two snares together here. The first one I've got just a tight kind of funky, half electronic, half live kind of thing. And then the second one that I've got, this one's got a little bit of a longer tail, it's got a bit more character to it. And I like to mix those two together because when you have one that's punching through and like giving the drums a bit of bite, and the second one gives it a bit of character. And I like to have both of those things in my songs, like the character and also the electronic punch. So that's why I've layered them together. And there's actually a third snare down here too, which I've used just for a little fill. And so it's a really tight little snare, just nice for a drum fill. And I've pitched it up one semitone just to match the tone of the other drums, and it just fit in a bit more nicely. So let's play the drums, what we got so far. A nice little funk groove going there. And the next thing was the claps. Now it's starting to get even more of a groove. The clap adds that human element, and I actually recorded these claps just at home. And then when we get to the hat, that's the foundation for a nice little funk groove there, you know. We've got the big claps, we've got a funky little hi-hat groove. Now I'm starting to get excited. I'm starting to get inspired to make a funky bass line and some chords. So that's what we're going to move on to next. I'll just show you the drum bus processing really quickly. So I've got a CLA2A compressor on here. It's quite heavy compression, about 7 dB there, and it's just bringing the whole loop together. It's gluing it together nicely. Next we've got the max bass. And I love this plugin, the Max Bass. There's this preset in here called the DS Bassin, and it just adds this sub to anything you add it to. I use it a lot on basses, I use it on drum loops, and it really adds some nice low end to the track. And now we've got the saturator. And so that really adds this crunchiness to the drums. It kind of distorts it a little bit on the top, and it makes it slap just a little bit harder. So that's why I've added the saturator on there. And I've got a nice little effect here called the, that's the bright filter down. So that's the basis of the groove. Okay, so now we're going to get to the chords. And I've used on this one a silent patch. It's actually a lead patch in the silent bank, but a lot of these patches I found you can use them not just as what they're labeled, you know, like a lead can be used as a chord if you put it into poly mode. You can use a bass as a lead, you know, there's lots, they're actually quite versatile. So I'm going to play in the chord groove of what I had. So I've gone for this major 7 to minor 7 type of feel, which you hear over and over again in disco and funk music. And yeah, just it adds a nice kind of smooth feel to the track, a little bit of jazzy vibe there. And then the second half of the progression, I did a little out of scale chord. I went to the A flat major 7, and this nice passing chord to go back to the G flat major 7. So the next thing I've added in is this little arpeggiated chord. And that's basically just repeating the progression from before. And it's a patch in the bank called the Wavy Sine preset. And it just adds a nice little vibe. It's like ear candy, makes it sound a little bit more interesting than just the plain chords. Yeah, so you get the idea. So we're going to add in the bass now, and this is where it starts to get really funky in my opinion, because bass is just such a key component of funk music. So the patch on this one's called the Thick Moog preset, and I've named a lot of these things because a lot of the preset sounds were inspired by, you know, analog synths. So I've tried to recreate that and give you some silent presets that sound a little bit like analog synths. Like obviously you're not going to get it exactly the same, but I've tried to model them as close as I can to analog synths. I think all I did on this one was bring the cutoff down a little bit. The original patch was a bit more bright, so I've brought it down a little bit to make it a bit darker to fit in with the drums that I made in this beat. So yeah, let's add in a little bass line. So just on the bass, I've got the max bass again, and it's again that exact same preset, the DS Bassum, and it just adds even more sub to it. Like I'll A-B it again for you. And yeah, it sounds quite nice already by itself, but if you add the bass back, yeah, it just adds a whole nother level of fatness to it in the low end. So shout out to Waves in the max bass, because that plugin is fire. So we've got a nice little funky bass line in there now, and the track really has all the main elements there. Like it's got the chords, it's got the drums, it's got a bass line. Now we can just fill it out with some other stuff. So we've got a nice little guitar here, which I've chopped up from one of the guitar loops. It's from the 80s guitar. And it's just a nice little muted thing, which I've chopped up to fit the groove of this track. So yeah, just another element that kind of fills out the whole groove, gives it a nice little rhythmic element to it. So all I've done there on the guitar is I've boosted the volume a bit, I've brought the stereo width down, and then I've actually re-added the stereo width here with a bit of delay. This chorus is actually off. So the delay just gives it this, it's like a ping pong delay, so it gives it a bit of stereo feel again. I've low cut it and then I compress it. So we're going to add in a funky synth lead now, and that's one of my favorite things to do once we've got the bass and the chords and everything, is to get a funky lead in there. Just adds another level of groove and funk to the track. So I've used this patch called the Lead Playful, and it's a nice little square sounding lead, again typical of funk. And yeah, let's see what we can come up with. Alright, so we've got a nice little funky lead in there now as well. Okay, so the next thing I've added in here is a little background lead in this section. And that's just a nice little melody line to have in the background. And that is from it's actually a pad and it's called the Light Breeze preset there. So just a nice little background lead thing. The other thing which I've added in the chorus is a nice little pad sound, and that's called the liquid pad. It just adds this lower mid range to the song where there wasn't really anything before and fills it out a bit more. So I'll show you that. And in the track it sounds like this. So yeah, very subtle, but it does add something to the song. Yeah, and that's basically it. Like, we've got some effects. We've got the, again, that little effect from the start, which is called the bright filter down. We've got this slide, this effects slide. Again, a really nice little slide that basically just goes up the pentatonic scale. And it's got a little bit of delay on it, ping pong delay. So, and then we've just got a nice little crash, and I think that's actually from my second sample pack, Future Funk and Soul Volume 2. So check that one out on Splice as well. And yeah, that's it. It's a really simple beat, and it doesn't have to be crazy. You don't have to have 100 tracks in your project. Like, if you see on YouTube, I've also got a tutorial of how I did my song Back to Life. And for a whole project, it was only something like 30 tracks, you know, very minimal. And I think a lot of the best music is super minimal, but all the elements are strong. And again, that comes down to good samples, good sound selection. And I've tried to design my sample packs to have those qualities, you know, like you can put the sounds in straight away and you don't need to do a whole lot of EQ and compression to it. You can just put it in and it sounds great and you get a vibe straight away. So I hope you guys enjoy this pack and that it inspires you to get in the studio and do something creative with it. And I'm excited to see what you can come up with. So I hope this has been helpful. Peace.